Welcome back, y'all. Today, I want to talk about solving the right problems in business. What I mean by that is I think there's two fundamental routes of a business. One route is just purely the problem that you're solving is that you need to make money. And another route, the problem that you're solving is deeply rooted in the pain point or the problem that the customer has. And I think there's pros and cons to both routes, and that's kind of what I want to go over with you. And I think the reason why it's important to actually sit down and think about these things is because it can dictate the direction and the strategy that you take your business. And so if you're new here, my name is Ryan Rice. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I have been doing this, I just started my 5th year. And I make these podcasts to crystallize my own learnings and then share them with you in the event that they're helpful. So first, I want to be very clear. I don't have any issue with going down the path of needing to make money. I think that is an important problem to solve. And I think solving that problem can fundamentally help us learn a lot of skills. And I think, honestly, a lot of businesses are in that category. And I think the pros of the problem that you're trying to solve being figuring out how to make more money is you can make money quickly. You can learn sales quickly. You can learn marketing quickly. And once you start making frequent sales, then there are other problems that the business will present. And then you can start to level up those skills. And so I do think that just starting a business with the purpose of making money has the ability to teach you skills. And again, the benefit is that you're going to make money very quickly. I think the cons of running a business with the pure purpose of making money is at some point you're going to cap out. And the reason that you're going to cap out is because when you become obsessed with the customer and your number one goal is to solve a specific certain problem for the customer, well, I think then the ceiling to the amount of money that you make goes away. Because if what you're doing is you're seeking out a constant solution to a very heavy problem and you're relentlessly working to solve that problem, then those problems are either never going to go away, or once you do help solve those problems, there's going to be more problems for that customer that will present itself, and then you can continue to provide solutions and so on and so forth. And that very easily transitions into the pros of going the other route of running a business to solve a very specific problem are you get to deeply relate with the problems of that customer. And if you can deeply relate and deeply understand the problems of that customer, then you're going to be able to help them more. And you're going to be able to build something that has more longevity. And as you ladder up, as long as that problem is a problem that will continue, in other words, the market that you are serving is a market that is increasing and not contracting, then you essentially have no ceiling or a very, very high ceiling on your business, or even simpler put, a much higher ceiling than if the purpose of you running your business is to make money. And again, I want to very much stress there is no issue with solving the problem of making money as long as you're doing it ethically. And I actually think there's a high likelihood that most entrepreneurs start in that bucket and then they realize that if they want to level up as an entrepreneur, then they have to transition into the next bucket. Or some people might realize like, hey, I can make $1 million a year, maybe even a little bit more if the pure problem I'm trying to solve is to make money. And some people are satisfied with that. And there's no reason to transition into something bigger. The cons, though, of building your business truly in service of a customer or trying to solve a big customer problem, I think the cons are substantial enough to where a lot of people actually choose the first route, which is to make money. Because the cons of the second route is it can take a lot longer. And the reason it takes a lot longer is that if you're not trying to solve the problem of making money, then if the problem is very difficult and it takes a lot of resources, then it could be a difficult problem to solve. and it could mean making a little bit less money in the short term. And I think this is so important because in all reality, you figuring out how you can make as much money as possible can solve the problem of your customer, because the more money your business makes, as long as you are allocating resources appropriately, it means that you're going to be better equipped to solve the customer's problem. And so you have to be okay with the thought of making a shit ton of money. And it is your goal to make a shit ton of money, but the purpose of why you make a shit ton of money is because then you can allocate those resources to solving the really, really big, hairy, ugly problems that your customer has. And you can solve them better than your competitors because you have more money and resources to do so. The reason I'm sharing this is because some industries are unique. Some markets are unique, some businesses are unique. And the draw to strategize and facilitate your business with the goal of just making money, you're going to make different decisions. And I'll give you a very simple example. And let's say you're flipping houses. I think the goal that most people have when they get into flipping houses is it's a method where you can make a lot of money. And so you get into it because you want to make money. And if you don't think about the fact that that is your goal, then what can happen is you can buy 10 houses all at the same time, because that's going to be the route on how you can make the most money in the quickest fashion. And that in and of itself could increase the probability that something goes wrong. And so the methods that you go about and the direction that you take your business is different than if the real problem that you're trying to solve, and this is a little bit more difficult to think about because it's more nuanced, but the reality of the problem that we're trying to solve, if you're a flipper and you don't run direct seller marketing, is you just want to provide a very good quality house to the end consumer. So the problem is, how can you provide a good quality house to the end consumer in the most economical fashion as possible? Well, if that's the problem that you're trying to solve and you don't know anything about construction, then what you need to solve for is learning more about construction. Whereas if you try to solve for making more money, then it increases the likelihood that you're going to make mistakes and put yourself in a bad situation. And that's just one example. I think you could probably provide that example in any business, in any industry that you're working in. And I'll give this last example just to bring this home, but now let's transition into a direct-to-seller real estate business, which is what I run. And if you're new to the channel, what I mean by direct-to-seller real estate is you run marketing directly to sellers of a home, and they contact you so that you can buy their home. If the goal in doing that is just to make a shit ton of money, then you have the ability to make a shit ton of money. And there's a lot of people out there who do that. And many of them make millions per year. And it doesn't change the fact that it's difficult. You can go that route and still learn a ton about sales and marketing and business operations, et cetera, et cetera. The problem I've seen over time is that if that's the only problem that you're trying to solve, at some point you might run into branding issues. And if you're not truly trying to serve the customer, then there's this, you kind of walk this thin line between how do I buy the house at the cheapest price while actually serving the end customer. And I believe that if you're not ruthlessly prioritizing the problem that the customer has, then over the long run, you could run into a branding issue, which I think has the ability to impact your long-term results. If, on the other hand, every single person who contacts you, you relentlessly work to uncover what problem that they have, and then you try to solve it, well, in the long run, if those are your true intentions, then you're going to build a different brand, and that is going to be a brand that has more longevity. And I think it increases the height of the ceiling of that business. One business is going to be purely transactional. The other business is going to be adding value to a marketplace. And don't get me wrong, even if your goal is making money, like you're still adding value to a marketplace, obviously, because you are earning money in exchange for a service, and there is a value being exchanged. But if you're not doing it because you're truly obsessed with the problems that the customer has, then there's a different frame of mind on the direction and how you operate and run that business. And so again, to be clear, I'm not saying one way is right and one way is wrong. But what I am saying is I think it may be helpful as the owner to just be clear on which path that you're choosing. Because then if you're clear, at least you can understand the upsides and the downsides of each route. And that is only going to help you make effective decisions about your business. Again, I want to be clear on something else. I fully believe in capitalism, and I am here to make money. And so, yes, I have a goal of making money as well. I want to achieve that goal through the lens of solving the root of the hardest issues that my customer has. And so I think if you start with your desire and it's just to make money, as long as you transition at some point into, okay, my goal is to make money, but I want to do it I know that I will make more money by being focused on the problems that my customer has, then I think that too can lead you down a good path. I think an important perspective just to think about where we are historically, we have been on an incredible uprun economically. And as you know, that doesn't happen always. And so at some point, there will be an economic contraction unless something happens in history that's never happened before, which seems unlikely. And in times of an economic contraction, I think those who are truly in service to their customer and are really trying to solve a problem that a customer has, which means that in a contracting economic environment, if those problems change, that means that you change your solutions to those problems. And again, if that's where your focus is, then I think those businesses are just set up to have more longevity than if your problem is just to make money. And so I think it's important just to think about those things, because if you are in this game to play it forever, then thinking about how you can play it in economic good times is just as important about thinking about how you can play it in economic bad times. And so just to summarize this, if you're wondering like, okay, Ryan, what's the purpose of everything you're saying? If I can run my business answering the sole question of how can I ruthlessly prioritize the problems my customer has? How can I put myself in my customer's shoes? How can I constantly iterate on better solutions for their problems? How can I reduce the likelihood that they have those problems in the future? If I'm constantly asking myself those questions, then I feel better about where my business is going to be 10 years from now than if I'm just constantly asking myself, how can I make more money? And so I think by default, if you ask yourself all of those questions, then the outcome of asking yourself all those questions in the long run is you will make more money. But it's this important distinction between what questions are you actually asking yourself. And again, to reiterate, like if the question you're asking yourself is how do I make the most money, then I think you have the ability to have some success, especially short term. I think if there is some sort of economic contraction, if those are the only questions that you're asking yourself, you increase the likelihood that you may run into issues in the future. And so I simply wanted to document for you how I'm thinking about the overall direction of my business and how important it is for me to build solutions that are going to help my customers long term. So if that just sounded like a bunch of blah, then feel free to discard it. But if that was helpful, then great, because that's just kind of me documenting a lot of thoughts that I've had about my business recently. So if that was helpful, feel free to send it to another entrepreneur. And that's one way you can support me. And the more I see that you share certain types of podcasts, that will increase the likelihood that I make those in the future. So if you like this, share it on your Instagram or send it to a friend that you think would help. But I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.